What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Will and Rock MMA podcast.
What's going on, everybody? We go straight into this UFC 232. It's such a stacked card.
From the prelims to all the way to the main event.
And
fucking stacked card.
Besides that, so much controversy behind this card. Originally started to they were going to fight in Las Vegas in the MGM Grand, and then all of a sudden they pulled off because of a failed drug test that John Jones had, which is now determined to be not the biggest deal in the world. It was something that was tainted back from 2017 that they caught on his bloodstream or whatever the case was. And unfortunately...
unfortunately, I mean, a good thing is still happening, but they're going now to Los Angeles. They're going to the Forum and they're fighting there. But the card is stacked. I'm glad that nobody decided to just not fight because they, good thing is they were still in the West Coast. Because God forbid it happened and they had to go all the way down to the East Coast. Maybe some fighters probably would have been like, no, the time difference. But at least they kept it in the West Coast and not a huge, how can I say, nothing really wrong with the fighters. They didn't mind fighting in that card.
Right, it didn't change anything for these fighters.
Right.
So let's get straight to it. It's once again stacked card. Not the first fight, and granted, we're not gonna do this in fight order. We will get into fight order when we talk about pay-per-views. I just wanted to mention that because it's gonna be a little bit off. We got Megan Anderson versus Kat Zingano.
Great fight. I think it's good for both fighters. Kat Zingano coming in after a victory that she barely had her last fight, and same thing goes for Megan Anderson. I think is an important fight for both fighters to see where they stand in that weight class.
You got the vet versus the somewhat of a young fighter in Megan Anderson. Kat Zingano, I feel like really needs to come out and prove that she's still somebody in this weight class because things are just not looking up for her. Yeah. It hasn't been looking up for her. She's really starting to lose that momentum she really had, which I really felt she was one of the few people who came close to being Ronda Rousey before Ronda really made this long streak that she came in. But Megan Anderson is young and is hungry, and I feel better overall fighter than Kat Zingano is. Kat Zingano is more of a grinder. I see someone like Megan Anderson has a great stand-up game and great takedown defense. So
yeah, I think it's a good match for both fighters. And
I think it's both pedicles in their careers. Yeah, I think overall it's just a great fight. We also have Andrei Arlovski fighting versus Walt Harris, the veteran of Andrei Arlovski, who just seems to never get off.
Yeah, you can never count him out. He's always in the fight. He's a guy that goes and gives his all. As of late, you're going to see a couple of decisions, but he's still looking for the knockout. He's still throwing his over right hand that he uses so often for so many years. But we are seeing a watered down version of the prime Arlovski that we used to see him fight back in the days with Tim Sylvia. However, still keeps it around. Still around. And Walt Harris is coming in to really, make his mark on the heavyweight division.
I couldn't agree with you more. At the end of the day, this is do or die for Arlovski. Going into any fight starting from now is do or die for him. He's really on the verge of his career. Don't know much about Walt Harris, but really looking forward to seeing if he can make a name for himself out of Andrei Arlovski or not, right?
Well, I guess we'll see.
Then I'm not sure if it's going to be, and we're still confused in the order these fights are, because these are preliminary fights, but we felt like they needed to be implemented into this podcast, which is BJ Penn versus Ryan Hall. Yeah. And this has everything going into BJ Penn. If BJ Penn has anything left, he needs a victory. There's no ifs or buts about it at this point. Mm-hmm. He's fighting somebody who I feel like they gave him the edge on somebody who is somewhat young, but very similar jiu-jitsu style to BJ. And maybe hopefully this will embrace BJ to really use his jiu-jitsu instead of his stand-up game, because he's just a step slower when it comes to stand-up game. And he's such a great submission artist that he should be taking things down to the ground.
I agree with you 100%. The only way I could say, BJ Penn, it's time for you to hang up your gloves is if he loses by submission. He's gotten knocked out by Jair Rodriguez already coming into this fight, who Jair Rodriguez pretty much dismantled him. BJ Penn had no business being with a guy like Jair Rodriguez in the octagon. Coming into this fight versus Ryan Hall, he has a really good chance of his stand-up game to see if it works, and not to worry if he gets taken down, because as we know, he is the prodigy when it comes down to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The question is, who has a better grappling, one, and two, who has a better jiu-jitsu move. If BJ Penn by any chance loses this fight by submission, he should definitely hang him up, because he's definitely not going to get knocked out in this fight. I highly doubt on that.
Couldn't agree with you more. Finally, going into the main event, into UFC 232, we have Chad Mendes versus Alex Volkowski, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm saying the thing correctly. Yeah. I think this is the fight for Chad, man. I think Chad, got popped with steroids in his last fight. Didn't show off very well. But, man, if you stop and think about it, the person who had the biggest opportunity to beat Conor McGregor is Chad Mendes. He just weared himself out in that fight. And I always say, man, if Chad comes together and he's well put, he's really unbeatable.
We have to take accountable that fact that Chad Mendes went into that fight with a week notice. Reminds me a little bit of Al Iaquinta when he went into the fight with Khabib, right? Comes in, did not have a full camp training. He did train here and there, but didn't have a full camp going into the fight versus Conor McGregor. Ends up getting knocked out in the second round because he was just exhausted at that point. Chad Mendes has a chance to make a mark in this division yet again after the big layoff that he had for like almost 2 years because he got popped for steroids. I believe that I believe that he's the best at that weight class. Let me take that back. One of the best in that weight class, and tonight he might just show why he deserves a title shot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure if he should get taken directly to a title shot, but he is on his verge. He needs to beat Alex, and we haven't said much about Alex. I'm not familiar with Alex at 100%, so I really can't speak much about him. Next fight, we got Corey Anderson versus Yair Latifi.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Is it either going to be the most boring fight in the card, or somebody's getting knocked out? I highly, highly believe that this is going to go into decision. It's going to be a grappling match. Who has better position? Maybe end up on the floor within the last few minutes of each round. I believe it's going to go to decision.
Interesting you say that. I do believe Latifi has the knockout power, is known to have the knockout power. He needs to make sure he lands that right hand and fight would be over. But the thing about Corey Anderson is he is a grinder, very similar to Katagano, just always in your face, wrestling you, and that's what makes him somewhat of a boring fighter. But they are putting him up against somebody who does a great job with his takedown defense and could throw his hands better than most of the people in his weight class. So really looking forward for that fight. Next fight we got Michael Chelsea versus Carlos Condit. Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa. This is a fight for Condit to really remake his name, like really put his name out there. Not to take nothing away from Michael, but Condit is in the same verge of BJ Penn and Andrei Arlovski. He cannot afford to take another loss. These last fights, it's tough to see him fight. He doesn't really have that momentum going for himself. He doesn't have the energy. He's not as fast as he used to be, which I think that was what made him different than most fighters, was that he was really fast. And being that he's not fast in that weight class, these young guys are going to eat you alive, man. Yeah, this is why Michael is such a deadly fighter. Michael is not only his jiu-jitsu game phenomenal, but his stand-up game has come a long way. Yeah. And he's really putting it all together when he puts out there.
I agree with you 100%. I believe that Chiesa going up in weight class where he belongs, so he doesn't have to cut as much weight. We're going to see a heavier, a stronger, quicker, I believe quicker Chiesa. Also, one of the things that you did bring up is that Condit has been looking slower. We have to remember Condit, who ended up fighting. He fought Georges St. Pierre at one point. I mean, he became he went for the title. A guy that moved very similar to a guy like Dominic Cruz, who always moving around, very orthodox, never stood in the middle. And as of late, we're starting to see he hasn't been moving as much, very flat-footed. I believe that because of that, Chiesa's going to take this fight, whether it's by knockout, ref stoppage, or a submission that could probably happen.
I wouldn't be surprised. I totally agree with that. We got what I find to be the fight of the year. Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. Totally fucking overshadowed by this craziness of John Jones and the whole thing. This fight has been overshadowed no matter how you put it. Yeah. And I know we hate to talk about it because so many reporters bring it up and they go, Yeah, it has been everyone's talking about how it's been overshadowed, but it really has, man.
Yeah,
this
right.
fight has so much implementation of being the best fight, period.
Yeah.
Whether it's man or woman, it's just a great, phenomenal fight. And you got someone like Chris Cyborg, who is hands down the best fighter in women's MMA history, versus someone like Amanda Nunes, who continues to prove why she's the champion. And this is one of those fights that needed to happen.
Yeah.
It just needed to happen. This fight, I don't see this fight ending in a going into decision. I think this is going to be a ref stoppage. I don't think none of them are going to get knocked down necessarily, but they're going to stop the fight just when somebody's taking too much punishment because they're too stubborn to not throw punches. And
right.
This is what I'm really looking forward to.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I believe that it's gonna go down to decision, and it's gonna go into who has been the most aggressive in that fight. I believe they're gonna go in there very carefully, pick their shots. I don't see anybody really opening up for a shot. It could be a very similar fight like Corey Anderson and versus Latifi, who they're gonna just size themselves up a little bit. I agree with you 100% as far as like is one of the best fights in MMA history, period, right? Who should definitely be a main event to begin with. It's hard to, not pick Cyborg, a female fighter who's been completely dominant since she stepped in the octagon, and we've seen it over and over again how she just completely takes advantage of these females. The biggest task that's coming her way is Amanda Nunes, and I believe that Amanda Nunes is going to give her the best competition. She might fall short. I really do believe she might fall short.
It's hard for me to disagree with that. It really is. When you're dealing with the best woman fighter of all time, it's hard to disagree with you with that. And then finally, the fight that was destined to happen. This fight is destined to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, the UFC could have cut them off out of this card, put Amanda Nunes and Cyborg to go main event in Vegas, which I honestly thought was the right move.
Right.
I think you take them off and you just let it be. But I guess they wanted to prove that Jones was a clean fighter, so they did this intentionally to really, because right now they took a massive hit going into a smaller stadium. But they know in the future, you got to think about the future business, man. And this is why this is technically a great move from the UFC's part is we're going to prove to you that Jon Jones is a clean fighter. We're going to still put him in the main event. We're just going to change the venue just because of Jon Jones.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing in the future how much money he could bring to the table. With that being said, I don't see Jon Jones losing, period, right? I don't. But the reality is that if anybody could take a hit, it's Gustafsson. And the thing about Gustafsson is that he takes impact and he hits you with twice the power. And is somebody who just grinded. The way he beat Glover Teixeira, he pretty much told Glover Teixeira.
Like a video game. It was like a video game knockout.
It not only was a video game knockout, but when you take somebody of Glover Teixeira's stature or veteranness, like everything you could think of, it's such a great fight, and make him look like he's an amateur and says, you know what, unfortunately you're just too old for this weight class, because that's what he told Glover Teixeira after that fight. It's insane how great he looked, and now he's fighting the person who's had somewhat of an edge over him.
You have to take accountability, right? The fact that Jon Jones took a big layoff because of this whole steroid allegations, and Gustafsson has been injured and is just coming back as well. So they both haven't been, although they've been training, they haven't been training to the full potential to a certain extent. I believe that it's going to make it a remarkable fight. But back to very similar to Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes, tremendous matchup, but I have the upper hand in Jon Jones, and I believe that Jon Jones is going for the kill, and I believe that he's going to get it, man. I really do.
Quote me on this one. Jon Jones will not fight in that weight class anymore. He would win. He's going to vacate that belt. And he's going to go for heavyweight because he's after Cormier. He's really after Cormier, man.
He's really after Cormier.
All right, guys. Pretty much said and done. Catch us next week. We'll keep you guys posted on any future events that's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
Peace, everyone.